The invisible language of desire. Have you ever met someone who could make even the most ordinary conversation feel magnetic, almost electric, as if every word carried a pulse beneath it? It's not about looks, not about charm, not even confidence. It's something deeper, a hidden rhythm between words, a silent conversation between souls. Carl Jung once said that every human connection is a mirror of the unconscious. What attracts us isn't logic, it's recognition. Something in you sees something in me and whispers, "I know this." Most people think attraction is a game of words, but it's actually an exchange of energy, a psychological language that bypasses the rational mind and speaks directly to the shadow, the part of us that holds our forbidden desires, our fantasies, our longing to be fully seen. You've felt it before, that strange pull towards someone you just met. You can't explain it. It's not what they said. It's how they made you feel. Like they looked straight into the part of you you've been hiding. That is the secret language of desire, and once you learn it, you'll never speak the same way again. The mirror beneath words. Every conversation is a mirror, but most people only see the surface, words bouncing off words, voices filling the silence. They forget that beneath every sentence there's a second layer, a quiet language that speaks through tone, rhythm, and energy. Think about it. You can say the same sentence in 10 different ways, and each one will awaken a different emotion, because words are not the message, you are. When Jung explored the unconscious, he discovered that the psyche is made of mirrors, each reflecting a different part of the self. When you speak to someone, you're not just exchanging ideas, you're holding up a mirror to the parts of them they rarely see. And that's why some conversations feel magnetic. They don't inform, they evoke. They don't talk about life, they make you feel alive. Desire doesn't begin with physical attraction. It begins when someone feels seen, not for who they show the world, but for who they secretly are beneath it all. When a woman speaks with someone who listens between the words, she begins to reveal pieces of her inner world. A story she never told anyone, a dream she forgot she had, a fear she hides behind her smile. And in that moment, she's no longer speaking to you. She's speaking to her reflection in you, the part of her that feels recognized, mirrored, understood. That's the moment attraction begins. Not because you said something clever, but because you became a mirror for the unspoken. So when you talk to someone, don't focus on what to say next. Focus on what they're not saying. The pauses, the breath before they answer, the spark that flickers when you touch something true. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." A real conversation transforms both sides. It's not about persuasion, it's about resonance, and when resonance happens, the air changes, the silence feels charged, and that's when the mirror beneath words begins to glow. The mistake most men make. Most men believe that attraction is a performance, that if they say enough, prove enough, impress enough, they'll be chosen. But the truth is, talking more doesn't create connection, it kills it, because when you talk too much, you fill the silence that imagination needs to grow. And the human mind, especially the feminine mind, doesn't fall for logic, it falls for feeling, for tension, for what's left unsaid. Jung wrote that everything we repress will find a way to express itself. That means the more a person hides their emotion, the more they crave someone who can help them feel it safely. When you fill every space with words, you leave no room for the other person's emotions to appear. You talk at them, instead of to them. And when that happens, she doesn't feel connection, she feels pressure. The conversation becomes a wall instead of a bridge. Have you noticed how the most magnetic people rarely say much? They listen, they pause, or they let silence stretch, just enough for your thoughts to echo back to you. That's when projection begins. Because in that quiet space, the other person starts to project their inner world onto you. They start to feel that you understand them, even when you haven't said a word. It's not magic, it's psychology. You become the mirror their unconscious has been waiting for. Real attraction doesn't begin with clever sentences. It begins with presence, with your ability to stay in the moment, to hold space for whatever arises. That's why when a man truly listens, when he lets his attention rest without judgment, something deep inside her softens. She stops performing, she begins revealing, and the moment she reveals, the connection deepens. So, The next time you're in a conversation, don't try to be interesting. Be interested. Don't fill the silence. Feel it. Because silence is where her imagination starts to move. It's where her hidden side begins to breathe. And when she feels safe enough to show it, that's when attraction transforms into something far more powerful, trust. And in the realm of the psyche, trust is the gateway to desire. The field of desire. When trust appears, a new landscape unfolds. It's the field of desire, not the loud, desperate kind, but the quiet, magnetic one that moves beneath words. Most people think desire is something they create, they try to impress, to spark, to perform. But in truth, desire is already there, buried deep inside every psyche, waiting for the right moment and the right mirror to awaken it. This field doesn't grow from logic, it grows from imagination. It blooms when someone feels safe enough to reveal what they usually keep hidden. When you're with someone, and you sense the air shifting, the tone softening, the eyes holding a little longer than before, that's the unconscious beginning to open. At that moment, what you say matters less than how you say it, because tone is touch, and silence is invitation. Instead of asking predictable questions like, "What do you usually do on weekends?" you could say, "Everyone has a secret side, something they only show when they feel deeply safe. What's yours?" Do you feel the difference? One collects data, the other opens a door. The moment someone answers a question like that, they stop thinking. They start imagining, and in that imagination, you're already there. Jung called this process emotional transference. When the feelings someone keeps buried begin to project themselves onto the person who gives them permission to exist. That's when desire begins to move. It's not about you being perfect. It's about you becoming the canvas where their hidden longings can finally paint themselves. And here's the paradox. The deeper the imagination, the stronger the attraction, because the mind cannot tell the difference between fantasy and experience. So when you awaken emotion, when your words make someone see rather than think, you don't just connect, you become part of their inner movie. It's no longer a conversation, it's a co-creation. Two psyches meeting in the field where symbols, memory, and desire blend into one. That's why in the right conversation, the line between reality and imagination begins to blur. The air feels heavier, time slows down, the space between words feels alive. You can sense that something is shifting, not in the mind, but in the body, in the heartbeat, in the breath. And when that happens, you've stepped into the true field of desire, where energy replaces effort, and what's felt becomes far more powerful than what's said. The mirror of projection. Attraction is never about reality, it's about reflection. When two people meet, they don't truly see each other. They see the parts of themselves they've been longing to find. Carl Jung called this projection. It is one of the deepest forces in the human psyche, the invisible current that pulls us toward certain people and pushes us away from others without us ever understanding why. Every man and woman carries an image inside them, an ideal, a fantasy, a hidden picture of love and wholeness. And when someone appears who mirrors even a fragment of that image, something ancient awakens. You feel drawn, but you can't explain it. It feels destined, almost spiritual, but what's really happening is that the unconscious has recognized itself. It sees in another person the symbol it's been searching for all along. That's why she's not really falling for you. She's falling for the reflection of herself that you awaken, and you do the same. You see in her the mirror of your own missing parts. This is why attraction feels so powerful, because it's not two people meeting, it's two shadows reaching for integration. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's the alchemy of connection. So when you speak, don't try to impress, try to reflect. Don't fill her mind with your story. Let your energy echo hers. Notice what she values, what she hides, what she reveals by accident, and mirror it subtly, sincerely. If she speaks softly about something that scares her, let your tone soften too. If she talks about freedom, let your words breathe space. This is not manipulation, it's resonance, the natural alignment of two unconscious worlds. When you become a mirror, something extraordinary happens. The other person starts to feel deeply seen, not because you analyze them, but because you reflected their truth without judgment or demand. And in that reflection, they start to experience themselves differently, more open, more alive, more real. That's the moment projection deepens, when imagination fuses with emotion and what was once unconscious comes to light through you. The danger, though, is mistaking the projection for the person, because the moment you try to possess it, it disappears. The spell breaks. The real art is to witness it without clinging, to hold the mirror steady without trying to own the reflection, because when you do that, something far deeper than desire emerges. It's not seduction anymore. It's awakening. Two souls remembering what they've always been searching for, in each other and in themselves. The power of suggestion. The mind is a storyteller. It cannot stand emptiness. When something is left unsaid, it rushes to fill the gap, and what it fills it with is what it most secretly desires. That is the hidden power of suggestion, to speak not to the conscious mind, but to the imagination that hides beneath it. You don't awaken desire by describing it. You awaken it by implying it, by leaving spaces, tiny silences that let the other person's mind bloom into meaning. Think of it like this. A line drawn halfway across the canvas is far more powerful than one drawn to the end, because the viewer's mind is forced to finish the picture, and when they do, they become part of it. Carl Jung once said, "The psyche always completes what is left unfinished." That's why the most magnetic conversations are the ones that feel slightly incomplete, where every sentence feels like a doorway, not a conclusion. Imagine saying, "There's something in the way you look at me tonight," as if you already know how this story ends. You didn't say anything explicit, you didn't push, you invited. Her mind instantly begins to move, filling the silence with possibilities, feeling something she can't quite explain. This is what true psychological seduction is, not exposure but evocation, not forcing but inviting, not taking control, but allowing the other person's imagination to do the work for you. The human unconscious is hungry for symbols. When you speak with suggestion, you become the symbol, the unfinished sentence, the open loop, the question that lingers after the conversation ends. That's what keeps people thinking of you, not because of what you gave, but because of what you left behind. Every pause, every subtle look, every shift in tone becomes an echo in the psyche. It triggers the projection mechanism. Their mind attaches to you as the vessel for their own unspoken emotions. And here's the paradox Jung would love. When you stop trying to make someone feel something, they begin to feel everything. Because suggestion isn't manipulation, it's respect. It says, "I trust your unconscious to find what it's looking for." The moment you learn to leave space, to let silence breathe, to let pauses carry weight, you become the mirror that imagination needs. And what follows is not conversation, but chemistry. Because desire doesn't live in words, it lives in the spaces between them. The Archetypes Awaken. Inside every human being sleep ancient gods. Jung called them archetypes, the invisible blueprints of the soul. They are not stories, they are forces. They move through us, shape our emotions, and guide our desires, even when we believe we're choosing freely. When you speak to someone, you are not only talking to their mind, you are whispering to these sleeping gods, and if you know how to speak their language, you can awaken them. In every woman, there lives a daughter, a mother, a queen, a warrior, a child, and beneath them all, the lover. This lover archetype isn't about lust, it's about vitality. It's the current of life that flows through beauty, through touch, through imagination. It's the part of the psyche that yearns to merge, not just with another body, but with another soul. And when a man speaks in a way that stirs that current, something ancient begins to breathe inside her. You can see it in the eyes first, a soft widening, a flicker of awareness, as if she's remembering something she forgot she once was. She's not responding to you as a person. She's responding to the archetype that your energy has awakened. Maybe in that moment, you mirror the warrior in her, the part that longs to be challenged, to test her fire, to feel alive in resistance. Or perhaps you call forth the queen, the part that demands reverence, presence, and truth. But the most magnetic of all is when you awaken the lover. Because when the lover rises, logic dissolves. The world becomes scent, rhythm, and electricity. Time slows. Every glance becomes a poem. And what's powerful is that this awakening can happen without a single touch, because it doesn't begin in the body. It begins in the unconscious. You awaken the lover through imagination. through suggestion, through words that carry emotion instead of explanation. Instead of saying, "You look beautiful tonight," say, "There's something about the way you move," like each step hides a secret only someone brave enough could discover. Now, you're not talking about appearance, you're talking to the mystery, you're calling to the archetype directly. Jung wrote that archetypes are like sleeping gods. They don't die, they only wait to be called. When you speak this way, your words become invocation. Each sentence becomes a spell, each pause a ritual, and when she responds, she's not responding to flirtation, she's responding to her own awakening. That's why the most powerful attraction doesn't feel like you're creating something new. It feels like you've remembered something ancient, as if two souls finally found the language they've been dreaming in for centuries. That is the moment the archetypes awaken, and the conversation becomes sacred. The guardian of the gate. But every door you open in the psyche has a guardian. The deeper the emotion, the stronger the protector that stands before it. Carl Jung called this protector the ego, the gatekeeper of consciousness. Its job is simple: to keep the unconscious from flooding too fast, to make sure we don't drown in what we're not ready to feel. That's why, after deep connection, there's often hesitation. After warmth comes a small retreat. After curiosity, a flicker of doubt. She might look away, change the subject, laugh off what just felt real. It's not rejection, it's the guardian awakening, checking if it's safe to open the gate any further. Every human carries this inner sentinel. It guards the line between what feels safe and what feels too intimate, between curiosity and surrender. The mistake most people make is trying to break through it. They push harder, speak faster, try to turn the moment back to excitement. But the more you push, the stronger the gate closes, because pressure awakens fear, and fear is the enemy of desire. The secret isn't to force the gate, it's to soothe the guardian. You do this through calmness, through presence, through patience. When you sense that retreat, don't chase it. Hold the silence. Let her feel that you're still there, unmoved, unshaken. In that stillness, she'll sense something powerful, that her vulnerability is safe with you. Jung said that every psyche seeks wholeness, but the ego resists transformation. It fears losing control. Yet when met with understanding instead of pressure, the ego softens. The gate opens again. You can gently say something like, "I get the feeling we just touched something real. No rush. I like the quiet that follows." These words tell the guardian, you're safe. No one's trying to cross without permission. And when safety replaces fear, the unconscious begins to move again, slowly, steadily, naturally. It's almost paradoxical. The less you try to continue the magic, the more it continues on its own, because the psyche longs not to be forced, but to be allowed. Attraction, like healing, is a process of trust, and trust grows in silence. So remember, in every deep connection, there comes a moment when the energy changes, when everything in the air says, pause. That's not the end, it's the threshold. If you honor that pause, if you breathe through it instead of breaking it, you move beyond seduction into transformation, because whoever can stand still at the gate of another person's soul without demanding entry will be invited in. The three keys: curiosity, vulnerability, complicity. There are three keys that melt the guardian's resistance, three invisible bridges that carry the soul across the threshold of fear: curiosity, vulnerability, complicity. Let's begin with curiosity. Curiosity is the gentlest of the three, the art of opening the mind without pressure. When you spark curiosity, you shift the energy from defense to exploration, because the mind cannot be both curious and afraid at the same time. A simple phrase like, "I probably shouldn't tell you this, it might change how you see me," instantly awakens curiosity. It creates an open loop in the psyche, a question that must be answered. And in that moment of wonder, fear relaxes. The second key is vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's the deepest proof of strength, because the unconscious only opens when it senses authenticity. Jung wrote that only what is truly human can touch the human soul. When you show a glimpse of your imperfection, not to seek sympathy, but to reveal honesty, you invite the other person to lower their armor too. You could say softly, "People think I'm calm most of the time, but the truth is, when something excites me too much, I lose all control inside." It's not a confession, it's a mirror. It says, I trust you with this piece of me, and trust is contagious. The moment you offer it, the other person begins to feel safe enough to reveal their own truth. The third key, the rarest and most magnetic, is complicity. Complicity is the feeling of us, the secret alliance that forms when two people realize they see the world differently from everyone else. It's the subtle shift from you and me to we. You could say, I like that not everyone understands this kind of talk. It feels like you and I notice things most people would miss. In that single moment, you create a small world that belongs only to the two of you, an invisible pact, a psychological intimacy that no logic can replace. Curiosity draws the mind closer. Vulnerability opens the heart. Complicity binds them both. Together, they dissolve the guardian's fear. The conversation stops being a game of words and becomes a dance of energy. You'll notice the air change, the tone soften, the distance shrink. She's not just listening anymore, she's feeling. And in that subtle shift, the archetype of the lover awakens again. But now, she's conscious of it, no longer hiding it behind laughter or caution, because she no longer feels alone in it. You've joined her on the same frequency, not as a seducer, but as a mirror of her own soul's longing. That's the beauty of the three keys. They don't manipulate, they harmonize, they create resonance. And where there's resonance, there's surrender. The shadow unleashed. Every soul carries a night within it, a quiet storm of everything we were told to hide. Jung called it the shadow. It's not evil, it's not broken, it's the part of us that holds what the world wouldn't allow. Our suppressed emotions, our forbidden desires, our raw hunger to feel alive. Most people spend their lives running from it. They keep conversations safe, smiles polite, touches shallow. Because if the shadow wakes, they fear they'll lose control. But here's the truth Jung whispered to his students. What we repress controls us. What we accept transforms us. And when someone finally feels safe enough, when trust, curiosity, and complicity have softened every wall, the shadow begins to move. You'll know the moment it happens. The air grows heavy, time slows, her voice drops half a tone, her eyes linger a second longer than reason allows. You can almost feel it, the unconscious stepping forward, testing the light. This is not the time to talk, it's the time to be, because words will break the spell, silence will deepen it. When the shadow rises, it doesn't need analysis, it needs permission, permission to exist, permission to be felt without judgment. That's when real intimacy begins. Not the kind of closeness that comes from touch, but the kind that comes from being seen completely without the need to hide anything. Jung said the shadow contains the gold of the soul. That means the very emotions we fear, jealousy, rage, desire, sadness, are not weaknesses. They're life force. When you can hold space for someone's shadow, without shrinking, without moralizing, without trying to fix, you become a mirror of liberation. Because for the first time, that person feels, I can exist here, fully, and still be accepted. And that is where attraction turns into transformation. Imagine a conversation where both people drop their masks, slowly, naturally, where laughter turns into silence, and silence turns into truth, where the words no longer come from the mind, but from something far deeper. That's when the shadow steps into the light, and what was once forbidden becomes sacred, because when the unconscious rises and finds no resistance, it doesn't destroy, it creates. The shadow doesn't want control, it wants integration. It wants to dance with the light, to feel seen, to finally breathe. And when two people reach that point, when their shadows recognize each other and whisper, I see you, that's not seduction anymore, that's alchemy. The conversation becomes a ritual of truth. Every glance a prayer, every breath a confession, every silence divine. That's what it means to unleash the shadow, to touch the deepest darkness and realize it was never meant to be feared, only felt. The integration, living as the whole self. There comes a moment after the shadow has spoken when silence feels different, not empty, but whole. You begin to realize that every fragment you tried to hide, every desire you tried to deny, was never your enemy, it was your doorway. Jung called this the process of integration. the merging of light and dark, conscious and unconscious, ego and soul. It's the moment when you stop trying to be impressive and start being real, when conversation is no longer a performance, but a meeting of truths. And strangely, that's when attraction becomes effortless, because you're no longer trying to be loved, you're simply allowing yourself to be seen. When a person stands before you without masks, without roles, without control, their presence changes the air. They radiate something rare, not charm, not confidence, but authenticity. The kind of presence that says, "I've met my darkness and made peace with it." That's magnetic in a way beauty could never be, because it gives others permission to do the same. And that's the final secret. The art of attraction isn't about getting someone. It's about awakening the part of them that already belongs to you, the part buried beneath fear, waiting for reflection. When you speak, do it as one who's met their shadow. When you listen, do it as one who's not afraid of silence. When you love, do it as one who understands that love isn't the merging of two halves, but the recognition of two wholes. That's what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You see, desire was never the destination. It was the guide. It led you into the labyrinth so you could meet yourself in the mirror of another. And now you understand, the language of seduction is the same as the language of healing. It's the same current of life moving through shadow and light, through word and silence, through you and me. When you learn to walk that path, you stop chasing connection. You become it, because every glance you give, every word you speak, every pause you hold, carries the memory of wholeness, and people can feel it. They feel drawn not to your charm, but to your stillness, not to your mystery, but to your peace. That is what true magnetism is, to stand in the world without needing to perform, without needing to hide, and simply be, awake, alive, whole. When you reach that state, conversations change. They stop being strategies of seduction. They become invitations to presence. You no longer lead them to the bed. You lead them back to themselves, because in truth, the deepest intimacy is not between two bodies, but between two souls who've learned to face their own darkness and still choose the light. So ask yourself, will you keep speaking from habit? Or will you begin to speak from consciousness? Because when you do, your words stop being sentences. They become mirrors, they become keys, they become magic, and every conversation becomes a path home.